Hello. Check to make sure that it's actually happening. It is. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here for our second live show discussion for the Folk of the Air read-along. Today we are discussing The Wicked King, this stunning cover from the Dusty Shop. So I guess we'll go around and introduce ourselves. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings. And just like general things, this is my first time rereading the series, and we'll get into this in a bit, but I have like a very different perspective on this book after rereading it. So I'm very excited to discuss it.
Love that.
Christy, why don't you go next?
Okay, so I'm Christy from Christy Reads a Lot, and this is my first time reading this series, and I've had a great time. Love this book. It is definitely my favorite of the series.
Love that. Samantha.
I'm Samantha from Books with Samantha, and a little bit about me. I'm not a fantasy girly. I actually don't read any fantasy, so this is the first time that I've read this series, and I won't even say it's the first time I've read like a Fae series, because I never read Sarah J. Maas either.
Oh, right.
So I think this is even my first introduction to like the Fae universe. I wasn't on the first live show. I gave that book 3 stars, and this one, are we saying the ratings right now?
You can, yeah, that's totally fine.
One I think is more of like a 3.54 star. I definitely did like it a lot better than the first one. So I'm enjoying it overall.
Cool.
Nice.
All right, Melissa.
I'm Melissa from Book Bar, and this is my second time reading the series, so my first time rereading it. And I definitely picked up on a lot of stuff the second time around that I don't remember picking up on the first time. And I'm like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep, that's how it is with this series.
Hello. I see where this is
going. So yeah, I guess we can get more into just general thoughts. I was telling my amazing co-hosts, I'm not putting up a bunch of banners this time. I just have a few for like general things and maybe specific characters if we want to just gush about certain ones. But I did want to start this live show with just like kind of just a general thoughts about the book, and then maybe we'll get more into spoilers in a few minutes. But I definitely want to hear from you guys, especially if you're, reading the series for the first time or if you're rereading it, and like how your perspective has changed, if it has at all. So for me, just generally, the first time that I read the series, I gave Cruel Prince 5 stars. I gave this one 4 stars, actually. And I think there's a couple of reasons why I didn't enjoy this book as much as book 1 the first time around. For me, I think having the audiobooks this time makes a difference. That always makes a difference for me. I'm like a huge audiobook girly. Like I love my audiobooks. And also for me, I've realized over the years that I can't really binge series. I tend to like get like oddly enough like burnt out, or like details get muddied in my mind of like what happened in each book specifically. So for me personally, I do have to separate it out and like, okay, I sit with my thoughts on book 1, take a few days off, and then jump into the next book. And so obviously that's what I did this time around with the reread. And I think that helped as well. But yeah, like the audiobook just like really brought the story to life for me. I have a different perspective on how I feel about Carden specifically. Like the first time I didn't really like his character, and this time around I'm like, I get it though. I get where he's coming from, Yeah. But yeah, so it was just like a very different reading experience this time around. I think also the first time I felt the pacing was slow, but this time around, again, like the audiobook is going to keep trucking along. So I was like, I felt the pacing was great this time around. Yeah. But yeah, those are just my very like general thoughts for sure. Yeah. So what about you guys?
I listened to the audiobook as well, and I will say I loved the narrator. I definitely, narrators like make or break a book for me, because I'm not an audiobook person, but I liked all, the voices she used for Carden. I liked the voice she used for our main heroine, so I definitely enjoyed it in that sense. Ironically enough, I liked the second book better than the first one. I think with the first one, I had different expectations for like what a fairy book or a fae book and a fantasy book would be, because I'm not so well versed in fantasy. Maybe I read too much dark romance, but I honestly thought Carter was going to be more terrible and like more cruel. When I read it, I was kind of like, oh, like they're okay. Like, I mean, they're horrible, but they're not like that horrible.
Right.
This is also YA, so it's for a younger.
True. I was expecting something totally different. So I feel like because I had so many expectations for the first book, it kind of not was a letdown, but I feel like the second book I was more like invested into the world and kind of knew like what to expect. I knew a little bit more about like the political like aspects. Maybe a lot of it would have already been known if I had read other fantasy books, but like I didn't know this stuff like about the soul and like the fairy fruit because I'm so new to this genre. So I feel like the first book was like almost an overload of information and too many characters that I didn't really like feel like any of them had a lot of like, they weren't very fleshed out to me. They were just horrible, but like I didn't like see the nuances to them. So I definitely felt like the second one I was able to like see characters and like pick them out and which ones I liked and didn't. Like I would throttle her sister. Like that's my one copy. Like, if I gained an ounce of power, like an ounce, she would be gone. Like that would be my first.
Yeah, that's fair though. And also to piggyback off of your point of like, you know, never reading a fae book before, I will say, you know, I've read a few fae series, but this is unique to me. Like the only comparison I have is that the way Holly Black writes fae is similar to the way Cassandra Clare does in her Shadowhunter Chronicles universe.
Oh,
but other than that,
I did.
Yeah, but other than that, like it's very different from like ACOTAR fae. Like, yeah, it's very, very different for sure. Yeah, I think this is an interesting point that I think has become a thing because of book talk and people like just posting quotes that like Carden will say to Jude or whatever. But all that to say, I feel like people expect more from the romance in general because of like the hype from book talk. Whereas when I went into the series, I knew like this is about fae. This is like Game of Thrones. There just happens to be a hate to love romance as well. It's definitely not the main plot. And I do think you'll be disappointed if you go into it expecting that.
For sure.
For sure.
That's what I went in just thinking is just YA fantasy and like obviously fae. I didn't know anything else. And so I knew it wasn't fantasy romance, like it's fantasy. So like the romance that we have been getting, like I appreciated it because I wasn't expecting or thinking we were going to get anything. So like I was happy with what we got.
Yeah, exactly.
But I liked this one more than book one. I think book one, kind of like with what Samantha was saying, like all of the characters and all of the names and like all of the king's children, like all of these people that didn't come into play until later in the book, obviously, of the first one. And so in the middle of the first book, it kind of lost me, like it was really slow for me, but it picked up at the end, of course. And I gave the first book 4 stars, where this book, I just was like invested in all of the political intrigue and like the scheming and all of these like, you know, terrible characters kind of doing things. So this one I loved and gave it 5 stars because I was just like along for the ride of their stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I see what you mean. Upon reflection of like, as much as I love book one, they're definitely, well, it's the longest book of the series too. But I do think that there are points where maybe things slow down a bit just because like Jude's doing her thing. She's now a spy for Dane. And like, you know, like there's all these things that are getting like slowly built up in that book. Right. But yeah, Melissa, what about you? Like reading versus rereading?
So I gave all of them 5 stars the first time reading them. So probably going to end up giving them all 5 stars. Yeah. But because I don't change my ratings. I'm not like that. But the first time I read them audio book style. And they were like my first ever audiobooks that I listened to. And this was before I was on like BookTube, Bookstagram, any of that stuff. So I didn't really know much. Like I was just getting back into reading. And I ate this up like candy. Like I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like this is, and then reading it this time, I'm like picking up on little things that I'm just like, okay, I see this. Like, and as a romance reader, I'm looking for those little like romance hints a little bit more than I was the first time around because I didn't know what to expect going in. Because again, I had no book internet knowledge at that time. So, which I probably helped because I went into it completely blind, like not knowing anything. I think I looked on Pinterest for like enemies to lovers romances and that like popped up and I was just like, okay. And I like listened to it and I was like eating it up like candy. Like I was like, I need the next one. I need the next one. I need the next one. Like, so, and I actually had to take a break between reading the first one and the second one the first time reading it. And I think that helped me because I read them from the library and I didn't have a loan. So I had to like wait. And I think that helped because I wasn't reading them back to back to back because I think that hindered my enjoyment a little bit of the third one because I literally like had to pick it up immediately. I was able to pick it up immediately.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how I feel about the last one, but I'm still just eating it up like candy. Like I'm like, yes, give me more.
Yeah, this one, what I noticed this time around is that like I flew through, especially like the first half in like only a couple of hours because I listen to audiobooks at like 3 times speed. And so I just like flew through it and I didn't expect that because of like my memories of the first time. I was like, okay, this one's going to be slower. And I'm like, no, like things are moving. Like, and it's a shorter book too.
Yeah. It felt very fast paced.
Yeah, I started it yesterday evening, like at 5 o'clock. And I finished it. Yeah, it wasn't even like a full day.
Yeah, it moves. It moves for sure. And it's just like so interesting, like the direction that Holly Black decided to take this book. Yeah. Like some of it is expected because, you know, the whole theme of this book, okay, the theme of book 1 is Jude getting power, her taking power from somebody else. The theme of book 2 is, well, how the hell is she going to stay in power? You know, keep this power that she now has. And so some things were expected in that regard, but then as the book goes along, even rereading it, there were parts that I was like shocked by, and I was like, it's as if I'd never read this book before.
I forgot who betrayed her.
Yeah.
I didn't guess that, who betrayed her whatsoever.
Yeah, I forgot that. There were several things. We can definitely get into spoilers now. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody on here, everybody's saying that they finished the book and stuff. But I forgot that. I forgot the circumstances of Baelkin's death. I forgot what else did I forgot the shit with Taryn at the end. And I'm like, oh, this is why everybody.
I will never forget. I will never. And I hate that character so much. Literally, I'm like, don't care about any other character, any awful thing they've done. I'm like, whatever.
Right.
But that sister, man, oh God.
Taryn crossed the line for you.
I'm like, how is she still here? Anytime she talked, breathed, had any character, I was like, you need to go. I was waiting.
One of my tabs is literally Taryn is the worst. in both books. I'm like, Taryn's the worst.
Yeah. Like she could be freaking drowning in like fairy fruit. I would not care. And I'm just like, the second the sister walked in, I was like, we're breathing. We're still breathing. Like
so Samantha, just wait till you read the next one.
True. True.
Worse. Sibling betrayal is worse than anything else.
I know, and they're twins, and like, it's just interesting though because like I said in last week's live show, I had more understanding for Taryn this time around, and then I was like, there's got to be something in this book that she does. It can't just be Queen of Nothing. And so then when the betrayal came up, I was like, oh, here we are.
I forgot about it too.
Oh man.
Oh, but what I was going to say earlier when you were talking about the political intrigue, I really do like Holly Black's writing. I feel like her writing is very lyrical, which I feel like that's a fantasy thing. But it's also very intentional. Like some scenes I would have never even like paid a second glance, and then they kind of like all tied together, whether it was in the first ending of the first book or in the beginning of this one. So I was like, yeah, I like how she's very intentional, like with her world building. And for me, surprisingly, like I wasn't sold on the romance. Like this was not my favorite couple by any means, but I still rated it highly because I really liked Jude or like Jude, and I love the political intrigue, which is so backwards because I'm not like that at all usually. So yeah, I like her writing a lot.
Her writing, what I love about her writing is that, like you said, like it's very lyrical, which lends itself to this like fae world. It's very intentional. We talked about that in last week's live show of like rereading it. Same with this book. I'm underlining new things. I was underlining things the first time that I read the book as well. But yeah, there's like new, like little details, like one sentence that I'm like, that's foreshadowing. All right. Like gotta underline that, you know, but at the same time, it's also very accessible and readable in my opinion, especially like, I don't know, like it's just very, very easy to read, very easy to get sucked into. Whereas sometimes authors with a lyrical writing style, sometimes I have to like slow down my reading speed to like really digest what I'm taking in. But with her writing, yeah, I'm just like, okay, next page, like next chapter, let's go.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it reads very much like darker, older fairy tales. So like it just easily pulls you into this world and story. Like her writing is just so good, which is why I binged them all. Like I couldn't stop.
Yeah. Oh, and I wasn't surprised that you did. I was like, Christy's definitely gonna wanna. I mean, and all these books are like 300 pages.
And they all leave on like cliffhangers.
Yes.
I'm like, how can I not?
Absolutely. And it's very unusual for fantasy books to be about 300 pages. So it is very easy to just like go on to the next book. And as much as I have read quite a bit of YA fantasy in my lifetime, this series is very unique to me. I don't think we're ever going to read anything quite like this series ever again. It just has a very special and unique feel to it, whether it be the writing, whether it be like the very vivid setting. And I love the map that's in this book that just like adds to my imagining of this world. And like, it's just making me more and more excited for The Stolen Heir, you know, the new book of the series. Cause it's like, well, what is she going to do now? Like, what is she going to do with this world and these characters now, you know?
Well, and like, I forgot that their marriage is only until he gives up the crown. And I'm like, how's that going to work?
Absolutely. There were a lot of things this time around that I was like, wait, how is this going to tie in then to The Stolen Heir? Yeah, how is this going to affect? Whereas obviously the first time I read this, it was just its own series and I didn't know that it was going to continue, right? So like I didn't even think about that. But this time I'm like, okay, like let's try to like tie things together. So I'm like trying to come up with theories in my mind. Yep. Everybody hates Taryn.
Except for Monty. He's not here this week.
Oh yeah, Monty's not here, but he was here last week for the Taryn Defense Squad. He was.
No. Yeah. I don't hate her. But I don't love her. Like, I think there's so many unlikable characters in this series, and like they're all doing, you know, shady things and trying to get each other. So like, I'm just along for the ride of Taryn. Like,
absolutely, yeah. I'm here for the drama. I'm here for the tea. If there's anyone that I hate, it would be Locke. He sucks.
He does, yeah, he does. But then she's with him. It's worse. I know. Literally murdered in her sleep. Like I would not like. No.
Yeah, I'm with Christy. I don't like hate Taryn, but like I'm more like entertained by, and I'm entertained by Locke too. But Locke in this book isn't quite as entertaining as he is in The Cruel Prince. In this book, I'm more just like annoyed. And then that whole scene with his like bachelor party freaking chasing down Jude. I'm like,
no. Yeah.
I forgot about that too. I was like, wait, what?
But you know what? In that instance, I wasn't even mad at Locke because he's just terrible. I was like, Jude, they've told you like 1,000 times not to go by yourself.
Yeah. True.
A dark forest by yourself. No, that I was mad at her like being an idiot. I wasn't even mad at him.
Right, like there's so many parts in this book where Jude is straight up like, I'm mad at myself. I'm like, yeah, stop getting yourself into these situations.
I mean, that's one of those things that just shows you like how young she really is when this is all happening. Like she's just, I mean, she's only supposed to be like 17. Yeah. Like she's a child. and she's has all this power now, and she's like, what do I do? How do I do this? And the way that she was brought up, it's like violence. Like when Carden says, all you guys think about is murder. All you answers to everything is murder, 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 murder. It's like, well, that's all Jude knows. Like that was literally how the first book started, was with her mom and dad getting murdered. Like that's all she knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I like about her being like semi-flawed and self-aware, is I feel like a lot of times when it comes to YA, especially like fantasy and stuff like that, is it's all the main heroine is always the most beautiful, the most like powerful, and it's like no, she is, you know, she acknowledges her weakness as being mortal, and you know she's not always making the right moves.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's something about Jude that, like, on the one hand, she is an absolute icon and a queen in my mind, but also there is a part of her that is incredibly relatable. Like these mistakes and stuff that she's making in this incredibly ruthless and cutthroat world. And it is easy to forget that Jude and Carden are both like 17 years old, like they're children, you know, and yet they're in charge of Elfhame now. Like, you know, and Jude is definitely like out of her depth. Like, you know, it's like, well, where do we go from here? You know, and it's just very interesting how this book starts of like 5 months into his rule and their year and a day bargain. And like, there were so many points in this book where I'm just like, Jude and Carden, have they ever felt real love from anyone?
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm like, these people like need a hug. And like some comfort food. Like, I don't know. Like, somebody needs to take care of these two. Because
yeah, that's why I'm like, I didn't think Carden was like that cruel, that wicked, that terrible as I expected him to be. I like felt bad for him. I was like, I totally understand like why he is the way that he is.
Yeah, and you get more insight of that in this book as well. Of why he is. Yeah, so that's another reason why I like his character more upon reread. I'm definitely more understanding of like where he's coming from and why he does the things that he does and why Jude does the things that she does. You know, like their motivations are completely understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, like the one person that really did love Jude betrayed her sister, her twin. Like, I mean, she completely betrayed her in every sense of the way. And especially in this book, you're like, I'm with Samantha. I hate her. This reread is just solidifying it. So,
yeah.
Well, I think
Vivi.
Well, she had her parents, right? Like before they were murdered.
Yeah, but she was like 4 or 5.
Yes,
she was like 7 when they died.
So I mean, she had a little bit where like Carden had nobody ever really.
No, literally nobody.
Yeah.
And with Jude, it's like she has Vivi too, but Vivi's doing her own thing. Like Jude does not have anyone who is there with her, like 24/7. You know, like she doesn't have anybody who is there with her, like in the trenches.
Yeah, I don't think she has anyone that has chosen her. You know, like Vivi chose the mortal world. Taryn chose Locke. You know, Madoc chose power. Like nobody was choosing her. So I feel like that's why she was so hungry for power. So she'll never be in that position where she's relying on someone else.
Yeah, that's really true.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And something else I wanted to bring up is this time around, I think before I started Cruel Prince again, I had like set this up in my mind. Okay, there's going to be like very little romance. Remember that? And so then when we do get romantic scenes, I'm like, wait, I forgot. I was like, excuse me? Like, wait, that scene when they're making out and he's like, tell me you hate me. I'm like, I'm like,
kiss me until I'm sick of it.
I'm freaking out. Yeah, till I'm sick of it. Kiss me till I'm sick of it. And I'm like, you know what?
I got my fire tab. I got my fire tab there.
So good. Like, yes, obviously this series isn't spicy, but like what we do get, I'm like, wait, I forgot the quality that we get.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that's why like upon reread, I'm looking for those like hints of like Jude and Cardan. Like in the first book, like of Cardan being infatuated with Jude.
Mhm.
And then in the second book with her being infatuated with him. Like
Mhm.
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
literally like I'm like, okay, you can tell. Like there's very much like moments where you're like, oh yeah, I see this. I see that.
Exactly. Quality over quantity. But yeah, like this time around, that's another thing that I've like been underlining more of, like the way that Holly Black words Jude and Cardan's feelings over each other. Like the way that like Jude in her inner monologue is thinking about her feelings for Cardan. And it's like, it's just so funny because it's like she's not even realizing, like, girl, you are obsessed with him, you are falling in love with him. And then like in this book, he said what the scene with the Queen of Mirth, and he said something like her beauty is like alarming and distressing, and like like once again, he's clearly obsessed with you. She's got the quote.
But I believe it is only that her beauty is unique. Cardan pauses for more laughter from the crowd, greater jeering, excruciating, alarming, distressing. Yes, I
Iconic.
You just have it ready to go.
had it ready.
So good. Just so iconic, so unique. Like, yeah. This is just such a unique hate to love romance for me. Like, yeah, we don't get a ton, but also that's what fan fiction is for. So
Well, and I think that's why the end of this book hurts so much.
yeah.
When he tells her, like, you're gone, like, go away. Because it's like
Whoa.
they're finally starting to like realize that they really do have feelings for each other. And then he's like, nope, get out of here.
Well, and I think that also ties into that same sort of thing happened in Cruel Prince. If you recall, like there was a point where Jude and Cardan like almost like really understood each other. They were starting to like team up together to like try to drum up support for you know, Jude's plan. And then she betrays him at the end by crowning him as the king. And so then we have the flip side of that in this book. Like I loved the buildup of that whole scene where Cardan proposes marriage to her. It's so well written, like the buildup of them like finally like kind of being real with each other, and him being like, you know, let me out of this deal. This is what I'll give you. It actually like kind of broke my heart a little bit when he was like, you don't have to command me. I trust you. Well, I trusted you, you know? And then this buildup of like him proposing marriage, and then the marriage itself and how there were like flowers blooming like all around them, like very beautiful moments that I didn't expect, you know? And then of course everything turns to shit again. Now we've got Cardan betraying Jude.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But what I will say, that scene is really iconic because that's the first time that we see Cardan like truly take his power, like use his power. He freaking creates an island. Like, what? So that Queen Orla will back off, right? And then it's just, it's so well done the way that Holly Black like built up to the ending, and then like bam, you're exiled, and then like bam, she's back in the human world, and she's like, well, what do I do now? Like that's quite the cliffhanger. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
well, they didn't believe her.
Yeah, their ceremony was just between the two of them. So at that point, it was Cardan against her word, and no one's going to trust her.
It's interesting because this time around, I picked up more on Cardan's behavior leading up to and right after he named her exile. There's lines where he said, like, Jude says, like, he gave me an unreadable look. Like, clearly he's trying to communicate to her this exile means something more, like means something different than what I'm just saying. Like, he's trying to communicate to her, but Jude is so like in her own world that she can't even begin to like take in what he's trying to communicate.
Yeah, she's not picking up the hints.
No.
That's why the way he words it is so important. Like in the next book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's very important the way he worked, like, and I didn't pick up on that the first time, but this time I like really made sure to like read it and like, okay. So
yeah. I was like, the way Faye say things in books is like important. So like every word they're saying like is intentional and like yeah.
It's so like it's crazy to think about how much you have to like analyze these conversations, because not only the way he worded the exile, but also like throughout the book and throughout the series, like we see scenes where Jude is having conversations with these Fae, and she at this point is very used to it. And like let's take the conversation that she had with like Crimson when he was giving her the earrings for Taryn, and like everybody wants to make a deal. Like nobody's gonna just like charge money for like their goods or services. And so you can tell that like he's trying to like trap her in something, and she's like, but you really mean this when you're saying, like, it's crazy how much you have to how careful you have to be as a mortal just to talk to a Fae.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, and that's how it is for everyone, because even at the beginning when they're at the thing and Cardin, that one lady offers Cardin the
Mother Hero. Yeah.
And she like, and Jude's like, no. What? We're not gonna take this, because she knew that it's never just giving something because they want to. There's always something attached to it.
Well, and like since the Fae can't lie, like they have to use their words to manipulate in other ways, you know, instead.
Yeah. Well, okay. I know this was such a small part in the book. It wasn't really like that big of a deal, but like I hated the fact that, you know, her sister Vivian like brought her girlfriend with no knowledge. I thought it was so reckless. I was like, what is she doing? I was like, I always liked her as a character, but I was like, you're awful. Like she could literally like, there's so many ways she could mess up. And the fact that she didn't even warn her about the fairy fruit or like the deals, nothing. Like, oh my gosh, I was so disappointed.
Well, and a really good point that like I didn't really think about until reading it is when Jude is like, me and Taryn were very good at hiding our real experience from Vivi. And so I do think that there's a little bit of that going on, that like Vivi doesn't realize how bad like Jude and Taryn have it all the time, you know? But also I think it's just Vivi trying to be like optimistic about her relationship with Heather, and like, I don't know, like I agree, it's incredibly stupid. And I would have thought that Vivi would have been a bit smarter. Like Vivi lives there too, you know, like she's half Fae, or is she full Fae?
Half,
right?
Yeah. But still, but yeah, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like she literally hasn't told this girl anything until she summons the steeds to take them to the land of fairy. And I'm like,
and they
like you needed a conversation.
Like we were like, oh, this is so wonderful. Why are you shocked? Like this is a great thing. Like you should be happy about it. And I'm like, what the heck? Like this part, he was genuinely confused. He's like, why are you scared? Like
he's like, this is awesome.
Oh, poor Oak. He's like, he was so happy that she was like finally finding out. And like, I was like, what, girl? How did you expect that to go? You just like dropping this bomb on her that like magic is real, fairyland is real, and we're about to go to a wedding there. Like, what?
And then when she glamours her,
ooh, that was bad.
It was horrible.
That was horrible.
It's like, that's not gonna go well for you, Vivi.
No,
like And then at the end, you know, in the epilogue, we find out that like Heather left, and I'm like, honestly, good for her. Like,
Yeah.
I don't blame her at all. Like, if somebody would have thrown me into a situation, I mean, I can't even fathom that. But if somebody had like thrown me into a situation like that, and then like, first of all, how did she even get away from Vivi to like be glamored by that boy? Like, you know, like
That's what I'm saying. Like, she didn't even stay with her.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that Vivi told Heather too, was like, stay with me. I'm like, you gotta give her more than that though. And the fact that it was like up to Jude to be like, hey, this is like the basic rundown of like all the shit that you have to be aware of. But yeah, no, I agree. Like Vivi's not the worst, but like I just hated that whole scene. Oh my God.
But there was another scene where she was talking to Maddox, and she was like, she pointed out like the scar and the like bit off finger, and she's like, you never knew like what we were going through, or you purposely turned a blind eye to what we were going through. And I was like, that's so sad.
It's true though. It is true. Like there were a lot of things that I think Maddox purposefully like kept a blind eye to, you know, even though we also see scenes where like in like the first book and in this book, he'll be like, who did this to you or whatever. But I'm like, Maddox, I don't think you like really know or really want to know. And it's just, again, like nobody is there for Jude. Like nobody is there. Well, Taryn had to find somebody to be there for her, but we know Locke doesn't really, Locke is Locke, but
he's doing his own game.
He's just like his own thing over there. Like, you know, but it's just like how, like, and Jude talks about this a lot in her inner monologue of like how exhausted she is all the time because she's pretty much running Elfame. She's still taking poison to try to build up tolerance. And then, oh my God, the part where she does go under the sea and she's realizing that she's addicted to the poison.
Yeah.
Like, okay. You know, like, it's just, yeah, like nobody is there. Nobody is there for these people. Like, but especially for Jude. Like, you know, it's just like,
which I wanted more time with the under the sea part. Like, that was really interesting. And like, it went by really fast because she was like gone a month, but like it kind of flew, you know, on the page.
That was what was shocking to me upon, well, both reading and rereading the book. I was like, oh, I didn't expect her to be away that long. Because, you know, like you said, like the scene goes by fast, like the couple of chapters that were there. And that's one direction of the story that like I definitely was not expecting. Like she gets freaking kidnapped, wakes up in the lake, and Nikasia's just there. And then, you know, she has to navigate these conversations with Orla and Balekin.
I was the opposite. That part of the book is the part where I almost zoned out a little bit, that I was kind of like over. I was just like, okay, like when is she saved? When are we gonna have like some actual like action happening? For me, I feel like that part like, I was like, I don't know, like this is a little boring. Like she's trapped again. But yeah, no. I don't know why. That part for me was just like I didn't want more time under the sea. I was like, let's just
well, and Jude can't be active in that part of the book. Like she's just thinking a lot, you know, and it's just like her being like stuck in that room for days on end, and then every now and then she'd go, like she had that like one dinner with Orla and Balekin and Nikasia, and then they like glamour her, and so she has to pretend to be glamored. But yeah, like she's not a very like active, she doesn't have an active role in that part of the book.
That's why I wanted a little bit more, because I feel like if it was fleshed out more and like more was happening, or like she could do more there, like it would have made it more interesting, because like we only get like a little bit and it wasn't like enough. It felt very jarring from the rest of the book. You know what I mean?
I agree. There could have been more to it. It's an interesting part of the book that I agree is a little bit jarring, and I think it's supposed to be, but it's just very different from like the rest of the book and like the rest of the series as a whole. And it's very interesting to see like how Cardan gets her back. The deal that he makes with Orla and Oh yeah, I forgot about this too, girl. I forgot.
Out of left field. I was like, what?
I was
Why?
surprised by that.
Well, honestly, I thought that like he was gonna do something way worse or try to do something way worse to Jude.
Well, is that when she was glamored? So he was like making sure, right?
Yeah.
Or did he just want to kiss her too?
No, I think he was just fucking with her. And
okay.
he truly believed that she was glamored at this point, you know?
Yeah.
So he was just like, how far can I take this?
It was also like a level of not revenge necessarily against Carden, but it was like, I'm taking your, the person you're obsessed with. Like, it was another move for him against his brother. I don't think he was interested in her romantically. I definitely think it was a game. But I think he was going to do something worse, especially in that moment where he asked her to kiss him, and then he asked her to say like that she was his. And the way she worded it was like, I am yours. Free.
I'm your creature.
I'm your creature, free to like do whatever you want with. And I was like, oh, she's going to get like assaulted right now. And then it's the next chapter, and I was like, did we skip because this is YA and we didn't want to go there, like details? And I had to go back because I was like, did they just kiss or like what happened there? Yeah.
But I don't think Balekin truly wanted to just, I don't know. I think he just wanted to play a game with her, and he just said something like, I think he said something along the lines of like, I don't know, like, why is Carden so obsessed with you? Or like something about like their relationship. And he just kind of wanted to fuck with it.
Is he the one who beat Carden? Like
he
used to beat him?
He had the servant.
Okay.
Yeah, he had the servant beat Carden. Yeah. I think he's just like fucking with him. And, I feel like Balekin just, the only thing he cares about is the throne.
Yeah. Well, that's when he wants to, because then he wants to use her to kill Carden, right? Yeah.
I will say, like, the part when Carden gets Jude back, when it like actually made my heart ache a little bit, because he was like, you told me she would be whole and hale. Like, you told me she would be okay. Clearly she's not, because she's like lost a lot of weight and she doesn't look good and stuff. And I'm like, once again, those like little moments where Carden like actually shows his feelings,
he cares.
But I guess we can get into like talking about like, okay, because like she comes back from the undersea, and then also we didn't talk about Taryn and Locke's wedding besides Vivi and stuff. Like, what happened at their wedding that was like, there was something else that was like very significant, I think.
Maddox found out about Jude's deal with Carden, how she could like he overheard that he overheard her controlling him and realized like how she was able to do what she's doing.
Oh, right.
Oh, and then isn't that when his ex tries to assassinate him, the like sea princess girl?
That was wedding? Earlier, with the crossbow she did.
Okay.
Yeah, that was earlier.
But I feel like there was something else at their wedding. But also Jude couldn't stay long, I remember. Like, the whole thing with Vivi happened, and then like Jude had to leave.
That's when it all happened, where she ends up getting going to the undersea because she's Ghost comes and tells her something happened. And that's when he betrayed her.
She knew that they were gonna move that night. So that night she had like 3 different plans to like trap them. But she misunderstood what they were doing. They ended up getting Balekin.
Right. Okay. Then she ends up with the ghost at the Tower of Forgetting.
And Carden's mom.
Yes. Yeah. That was also a very interesting little part of this book. When she meets his mom and like talks to her about her own mother. And then like how Carden, I guess, pardoned her. And so now she's like a part of the court again. I'm interested to see if that's going to affect more of the story, because I can't remember it all. I like completely forgot that his mom was in the story at all. So yeah, that was interesting. But then like after she comes back from the undersea, I feel like there was another like significant part of the story before their wedding, before like Jude and Carden's wedding. And I'm like blanking for some reason. But
she realizes that Maddox is like keeping her out of the castle and like keeping her at his house, so he can try to control Cardan, because he tells his guards like she can't, like nobody can see her, she can't leave, and then he tells the castle guards like she's not allowed in.
Right.
So she can sneak in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when she's doing like a lot with the Queen of Mirth, right? Like,
no, that's early.
That was
early on before the wedding. Okay.
Yeah, Queen of Mirth was, I think even before Taryn and Locke's wedding.
Okay.
It was.
It was pretty early on.
Because after the wedding, she immediately went to the Undersea. So then that's when all that stuff happened, and then their marriage. Yeah.
It was also interesting. This was kind of a small part of the story too, but I thought it was interesting. One of the things that Jude commanded Cardan to do was seduce Nicasia. I guess into giving up secrets about like Orla and like the whole like plan, like the Underseas plan. Yeah, I swear there was something else I wanted to bring up towards like the end of the book, and I'm blanking. It's interesting, another small part of the book, when she gets to talk to, his name's Valmorin, and he was like the previous king's seneschal, and she has like 2 conversations with him, I think. It's just like very interesting, like I guess how he took on that role of being seneschal, and then like how she's taking it on, and like the way that these Fae like talk in riddles and stuff, and she's like, what are you even saying?
Well, because he's human. He's a human, or he was a human. So the second conversation that she has with him is when she gets back and she's trying to get into the castle, and he says part of his deal, with King Eldrin, or Eldred, whatever his name is, was that he was not allowed to like pick mortals. He would always have to pick the Fae. That's why he won't let her.
He swore his loyalty to the king, so he wanted to help her, but he couldn't.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I was going to bring up. I mean, we didn't really get to talk about like the scene where Jude kills Baelkin. Like, I forgot how like fast it happened. First of all, like she tricked him with the poison. You know,
he's trying to poison or he does poison Cardan, right?
Yeah. He does end up getting poisoned, and so she shows up with like the vial of poison, but it's actually just water. And so she like tricks him, like spits out the antidote and gives it to either the roach or the bomb, I can't remember. And then like they start a duel, and then like freaking right away she kills him, and he's trying to surrender, and I'm just like, what just happened? Like this, it reminds me of like when she killed Valerian too. It just like happened so fast, and I'm like, where, what? Like, oh my god, just geez. Game of Thrones shit.
Very.
A lot happened after she got saved from Queen Orla. Like so much happened, like back to back to back.
Yeah, because then she goes back after killing Baelkin, and Cardan's like, "Oh, you changed back into your clothes," and she's like, "What are you talking about?" That's when she realizes that Taryn, pretended to be her, for Maddox to take their army.
Which again, Taryn trash. Just
she persuaded him to like let Maddox go of his vows, like let him out of his vow,
and take some of the army.
Take half of their army away.
Yeah.
What? Jeez. Yeah, I forgot about that part with Taryn, and I was like, oh yeah, I get why like everybody really hates her guts. Oh,
Taryn's the worst.
Oh yeah, you got this. Oh man. And so I guess just like a good way to kind of like round out this live show is to ask, especially people who are reading it for the first time, because obviously like rereaders, we have at least a vague idea of what happens in the next book. But what, like, do you guys have any theories of what you think will happen or what you think should happen in the third book, Queen of Nothing? Definitely let us know in the comments and we can, discuss what you guys think. But I forgot a lot about what happened in the Queen of Nothing, so I know very general things, but it's going to be like reading it for the first time all over again. So
I'm just here for the journey, here for the vibes. Obviously, she's not going to stay in the human world, but like other than that, I'm just going for it. I don't have any theories. I hope Taryn dies at some point, but that's just what we're thinking.
Ever.
Never. She will remember it always.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm more excited to see like how her and Carden play a role in the Stolen Heir.
Oh yeah, that's
like
that's my main thing going into the Stolen Heir. Like, Oak is fine. Like, I don't know, that she'll create more of a character for him when he's the main character of a book. But like, I'm not like dying for like Oak's POV. I'm more so, all I know about the Stolen Heir is that it takes place 8 years after the Queen of Nothing. That's all I know. Which makes sense because then Oak will be of age. But
he's like the same age Jude is now.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I really don't know anything. And I've like purposefully stayed away from any reviews. Cause like, this is the thing with The Wicked King, I was spoiled for that ending a long time ago because I book Twitter. People wouldn't shut up about the ending, on Twitter. And so like the second that book came out. And so I was like, okay, like I already knew the exile was going to happen. Obviously I didn't know like the circumstances of it. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I didn't have to wait because like this is what I do with series though. I purposefully try to wait until the last book comes out so I don't have to torture myself and wait. Yep. So let's talk about the next live show then, because I have these books with me. So the next live show is going to be for both The Queen of Nothing, which this cover, absolutely stunning. Jude being the queen that she is. And then we're also going to be talking about how the King of Elfheim learned to hate stories. So this is a bind up of like short stories, I would say. Some of them take place after the events of Queen of Nothing. Some of them take place, like we do get a bit of POV of like Carden's childhood, things like that, which is really great to actually get his POV about a lot of things. But yeah, and this one also has like stunning illustrations throughout. But yeah, I'm very excited because the first time that I read this series, this was actually my favorite book of the series. And like a lot of people hate this book. So like, I'm just in the minority, I guess. But I'm interested to see like how I'm going to think about it upon reread. And then with this, like it's the vibes. Like it's all about the vibes and illustrations, and it's just going to be like really beautiful. But our live show for these two books is going to be next Sunday. So that's January 22nd at 8 p.m. Central Time. I had to do a slightly different day and time because I'm going to be out of town next Friday and Saturday. So I'll be back for Sunday night so that we can talk about these two books together. But I'm very, very excited to talk about like the ending of this trilogy, the ending of like this part of the series. And yeah.
So on the back of, sorry, Rachel.
Oh, no, you're fine.
On the back of those books from the Dusty Shop, because I got them too, and like I didn't know anything before going in. So like on the back, who are the characters supposed to be? Like on
this one?
All of them. Yeah.
Oh, I'll actually show you all of them because,
this
is
I have them, but I was like trying to figure it out as I went, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is Oak, maybe this is, you know what I mean?
So this is the Cruel Prince. On the back is you've got Maddox, which they drew him like a daddy, like a straight up daddy.
Yeah. He is though. Like
he is. This is Oriana. This is Oak. This is Taryn, and this is Vivi.
Okay.
And then let me get the Wicked King on the. So this is just Jude and the Undersea, and then on the back is Cardan with Nicasia and Locke. This is my favorite illustration of the books. I think it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And then on the back of Queen of Nothing, this is the Roach, the Bomb, and the Ghost. So,
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what they actually look like. Because when I first read this series, I didn't really have a clear picture in my mind of what they looked like. But yeah, that's them.
See, I thought that was Oak on the back of that one.
Oh, okay.
With the lighter hair. And so I'm like, I wasn't picking up on who was supposed to be who from the descriptions.
Right. So also this is random, but something that like Twitter has been freaking out about, that Oak has hooves for feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so this time rereading the series, I'm like, did Holly Black ever write that into the book? Like, is that something she just kind of randomly came up with? And I will say there was one mention of the hooves in The Wicked King. So
there was horns. There was mention of his horns, but I didn't catch on to the hooves.
Yeah.
I knew Matic was like green, but I always thought Matic was daddy, so I was like fine with that.
Yeah. The hooves are mentioned one time when they're like have to like get Oak out of the carriage and they put him through the window, and so she says like hooves first.
I just know they talk about Cardan's tail a lot.
Like it wraps around her and then the chair. Yeah.
I love that like people get so freaked out about the tail. I'm like, I really don't care.
I know. They haven't read monster romances, I guess.
Yeah. I was gonna say the tail plays a very interesting part in the next book.
There you go.
I remember that scene. I remember that scene lives in my brain.
Melissa knows. That's true though, because most of us have read monster romances, so like we're not faced by like anything at this point.
Right. I read a whole Minotaur book. Like it's fine. It's literally okay. There was one like spider monster romance. I'm like, you can't. A little tail's not gonna scare me.
Right. Like at this point, none of us are shocked.
Yeah.
Like we read alien romances and monster romances all the like not all the time, but you know, like we're well versed.
And extra bits.
You can tell that these are just like YA fantasy girlies, and so they're like they're freaking out about
scandalized.
I was listening to a podcast and they talked about this book and they saw fan art and they were like, he's green, and I was like, okay, like.
I can't. People like really freak out about this stuff. But yeah, I think that's about it for our discussion about The Wicked King. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much, Christy, Samantha, and Melissa for joining me today on the live show. I really like this more like casual kind of discussion that we can just like bring up whatever parts of the book we want to. It doesn't have to be anything too formal. And yeah, I hope that everybody watching has a wonderful rest of your night, a wonderful rest of your weekend. And like I said, we will see you for next week's live show on January 22nd. That is a Sunday at 8 p.m. Central Time. So I hope everyone has a wonderful night. And thank you for watching. Bye. And it always